What if the greatest hero of the Trojan War wasn't Achilles, but the man who knew he was going to lose and fought anyway? Hector never wanted glory. He wanted his family. Yet he became the last shield standing between Troy and total destruction. When people think about the Trojan War, one name usually comes first: Achilles. The greatest Greek warrior. Fast. Strong. Nearly impossible to kill. But here's the strange part. If you read the ancient stories carefully, you'll notice that the character many people respect the most isn't Achilles at all. It's Hector. Unlike the other heroes chasing fame, Hector wasn't fighting because he wanted songs written about him. He wasn't trying to become immortal through legend. He was simply doing his job. He was a prince. A husband. A father. The commander of Troy's army. Every morning he walked out of the city gates knowing there was a chance he would never come back. And unlike many of the heroes around him, he understood exactly what was at stake. If he failed, his city would burn. His wife would become a slave. His son would grow up without a father, if he survived at all. This is the story of a man trapped between love and duty. A man history remembers not because he won, but because he refused to stop fighting even when defeat was almost certain. Hector was the eldest son of King Priam and Queen Hecuba, rulers of the wealthy city of Troy. Troy wasn't some tiny kingdom hidden away on a hill. It controlled one of the most important trade routes between Europe and Asia. Merchants from across the ancient world passed through its gates. Its walls were famous. Its wealth was legendary. Its army was respected. Growing up, Hector wasn't trained to become a conqueror. He was raised to become a king. That meant learning how to lead, protect his people, settle disputes, and defend the city if enemies ever appeared. He married Andromache, a woman who had already lost nearly everyone she loved. Her father and brothers had been killed years before, leaving Hector as her entire world. Together they had a baby boy named Astyanax. For Hector, this wasn't just another royal family. It was everything. Which makes what happened next even more tragic. The Trojan War didn't begin because Hector wanted it. It didn't even begin because Troy wanted it. It began because Hector's younger brother, Paris, made one of the worst choices in Greek mythology. Paris traveled to Sparta, where he met Helen, the wife of King Menelaus. Whether Helen left willingly or was taken by force depends on which ancient version you read. Either way, Paris returned to Troy with another man's wife. In today's world, that would be a scandal. In the ancient world, it was enough to start a war. Menelaus called on the Greek kings who had sworn to protect his marriage. Soon, dozens of kingdoms joined together. Legend says over 1,000 ships crossed the Aegean Sea toward Troy. The city suddenly faced the greatest military alliance Greece had ever assembled. And Hector knew exactly who would have to stop them. As the war dragged on, Hector became Troy's greatest defender. Every battle seemed to end the same way. Greek soldiers would push forward. Hector would drive them back. Again. And again. And again. While Achilles was the greatest individual fighter, Hector became something even harder to find. A true leader. He inspired exhausted soldiers to keep standing. He organized defenses. He protected civilians. He made impossible decisions every single day. The Greek army respected him. The Trojans depended on him. Even his enemies admitted that Troy would have fallen years earlier without Hector. That's an incredible compliment when it comes from the people trying to destroy your city. The more you compare Hector and Achilles, the more interesting they become. Achilles fought mainly for personal honor. When his pride was hurt after Agamemnon took Briseis, Achilles refused to fight. Thousands of Greek soldiers died because their greatest warrior stayed in his tent. Hector never had that luxury. He couldn't stop. His family lived behind the walls. His people depended on him every hour. If Hector walked away, Troy would collapse. That difference changes everything. One man fought for glory. The other fought because someone had to. And that's why many readers see Hector as the more human hero. One of the most emotional moments in all of ancient literature happens far away from the battlefield. Hector returns inside Troy for a brief moment. He finds Andromache holding their baby son. She begs him not to go back. She knows what will happen. She tells him she has already lost her father. She has already lost her brothers. She cannot lose him too. Hector listens. He understands. He isn't fearless. He's terrified. But then he says something that has echoed through history for nearly 3,000 years. He tells her he would feel unbearable shame if he stayed behind while others fought for Troy. Not because he wants death. Because duty leaves him no choice. Then something beautiful happens. Hector reaches for his baby. The child starts crying. Why? Because Hector is wearing his giant horsehair helmet. The helmet scares him. Hector laughs. He takes it off. He picks up his son. He kisses him. He prays that one day the boy will become greater than he is. It's such a small moment. A father making his baby smile. Yet it reminds us that beneath all the armor was simply a man trying to protect his family. That scene has survived for thousands of years because almost everyone understands it. Love makes leaving harder. Duty makes leaving necessary. At one point, Hector pushed the Greeks all the way back to their ships. This was the closest Troy ever came to complete victory. The Trojans broke through Greek defenses. They reached the beaches. They even set fire to one of the Greek ships. Think about that. For 10 years, the Greeks had surrounded Troy. Now Hector had nearly driven them into the sea. If events had gone just a little differently, the entire story of Western mythology might have changed. But fate had other plans. Achilles was still refusing to fight. So his closest friend, Patroclus, borrowed Achilles' famous armor. The idea was simple. If the Trojans thought Achilles had returned, they might retreat. At first, it worked. The Trojans pulled back. But Hector eventually realized the truth. This wasn't Achilles. It was Patroclus. The two warriors fought. Hector won. He killed Patroclus. Then he took Achilles' armor as a trophy. From Hector's point of view, he had defeated one of Greece's greatest fighters. He had no idea he had just signed his own death sentence. When Achilles learned Patroclus was dead, everything changed. His anger exploded. He ended his refusal to fight. The Greeks had their unstoppable warrior back. But this wasn't the Achilles people knew before. This Achilles cared about only one thing. Revenge. He slaughtered Trojan soldiers without mercy. Ancient writers describe rivers filling with bodies. No one could stop him. Eventually, only one man stood between Achilles and the city. Hector. As Achilles approached Troy, everyone ran inside. The gates opened. The defenders rushed to safety. King Priam begged Hector to come inside. His mother cried for him. Everyone knew what was about to happen. No one believed Hector could defeat Achilles. For one brief moment, Hector almost listened. He considered retreating. He even thought about negotiating peace. But then he imagined the shame. How could he face the people if he abandoned them? How could he ask others to die while he hid behind the walls? So Hector stayed. Alone. Waiting. Sometimes courage doesn't look like confidence. Sometimes courage is standing your ground while knowing exactly how the story ends. When Achilles finally arrived, something unexpected happened. Hector ran. 3 times they raced around the massive walls of Troy. People sometimes misunderstand this moment. Running wasn't cowardice. It was survival. Hector was facing the greatest warrior alive. Anyone would hesitate. Anyone would search for another chance. Finally, the goddess Athena tricked Hector into believing help had arrived. Thinking he no longer stood alone, Hector stopped running. He turned to face Achilles. The final battle had begun. The fight didn't last long. Achilles was faster, stronger, almost impossible to injure. Hector fought with everything he had. Then his spear missed. He looked for the brother he thought was beside him. No one was there. Athena had disappeared. Only then did Hector realize he had been deceived by the gods. He understood that death had come. Still, he refused to beg. He charged one final time. Achilles drove his spear into the one weak spot in Hector's armor. The Trojan prince fell. His last request was heartbreaking. He asked Achilles to return his body to his family so they could bury him with honor. Achilles refused. His rage was too great. Achilles tied Hector's body to his chariot. Then he dragged it around the walls of Troy while Hector's parents, wife, and people watched in horror. Even many Greek heroes thought this had gone too far. In ancient Greece, proper burial was sacred. Denying it was one of the greatest insults imaginable. But grief had turned Achilles into someone almost unrecognizable. For days, Hector's body remained in the Greek camp. Then something extraordinary happened. Old King Priam secretly entered the Greek camp at night. Imagine the courage that took. An elderly king walked alone into enemy territory to meet the man who had just killed his son. When Priam reached Achilles, he didn't threaten him. He didn't argue. He knelt. He kissed the hands that had killed Hector. Then he asked Achilles to remember his own father. For the first time since Patroclus died, Achilles broke down. Both men cried together. One for the friend he had lost. The other for the son he would never see again. Achilles finally returned Hector's body. For a short moment, hatred gave way to humanity. It became one of the most powerful scenes in all of literature. Thousands of years have passed since people first heard the story of Hector. Empires have risen and fallen. Languages have changed. The world is almost unrecognizable. Yet Hector still feels real. Maybe that's because most of us aren't Achilles. Very few people are the strongest person in the room. Most of us are more like Hector. We wake up every morning carrying responsibilities we didn't choose. We worry about our families. We protect the people we love. We face problems we know we might not completely solve. And we keep going anyway. That's why Hector's story has survived for nearly 3,000 years. Not because he won. Not because he was unbeatable. But because he showed what real courage looks like. Real courage isn't believing you'll win. Real courage is doing the right thing when you know the odds are against you. In the end, Troy fell. Its walls were broken. Its people scattered. Its glory faded into history. But Hector's name never disappeared. Because sometimes the greatest heroes aren't remembered for their victories. They're remembered because, when everyone else looked at disaster and stepped back, they stepped forward.